Take care.
Good evening, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here with everyone. If everyone can move closer, there's some seats here in front. It is a great privilege and an honor to have Rabbi Brody here with us tonight. And those of you who don't know Rabbi Brody, he's a very, very, very special man. As you'll learn tonight. Here comes Jordan. Ross, come here. It's too late. It's too late, John.
Right here.
Let's go. Jordan, get him. Ready? These are comfortable.
Here, Ross. Sit right here.
All right. So, I'll let Rabbi Brody say more about his background, perhaps. But Rabbi Brody it says that the way Torah should be taught shouldn't be from a cup that you keep on spilling out, but rather a cup that you keep on filling and it overflows. And Rabbi Brody is one of those great, great Torah leaders who his cup overflows and his love for humanity overflows. And everything that you see is just gushing out and oozing out with love and with joy. So it really is an incredible privilege to have him here at the Torch Center to talk to all of us, to inspire us. And of course, to tease my children. Rabbi Brody earlier was teasing my children with push-ups, right? Showing them how to do it properly, right? And they still can't match a percent, right? So Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Brody's, but really an incredible Torah scholar, a very inspirational speaker, and we're really delighted that he's here. Rabbi Brody.
Hashem, with Hashem's loving grace, I'm delighted to be in Houston, really delighted to be in Houston. And tonight we're going to talk about making our life heaven on earth. And B'ezrat Hashem, okay, if you listen and internalize what we're going to say tonight, you're going to be on the road to making your life heaven on earth, okay? So there was this guy in Houston, without listening to me, he thought he would make life heaven on earth. He was a golf freak. But his wife was observant, and it was Yom Kippur morning. And she says to him, it was the day before Yom Kippur. And she says to her husband, no golf course today. Tomorrow you're going to go with me to shul. Yom Kippur, he says, yeah, my wife, yeah. Okay. So what he does a preemptive preparation, and he parks his car 2 blocks from the house. Okay. And he told her, yeah, the car is, I parked it in your shul, so after it. And he put his golf bag in the trunk. Okay. And his wife goes to shul. Next day, come on, man, you're late. So I'll be there in a minute. She goes to shul, and he goes behind her back, walks the 2 blocks, gets in the car, goes to the golf course. There is no one on the golf course. You have a Houston September morning that's just unbelievable. He's got the fairway all to himself. He's got the greens all to himself. And he's got everything in a blue sky and a soft breeze. The wind may be 3 miles an hour, but just enough to cool you off when the sun gets hot in the middle of the day. And he's so inspired. It's Yom Kippur. And he says, Almighty God, this is heaven on earth. Can't imagine more of a nirvana, more of a heaven on earth than right on the golf course on Yom Kippur. Got the golf course all to himself. So a voice answers it from heaven. It says, no, my beloved son, you should see the golf courses we have up in heaven. You never wait in the green. You always have gorgeous manicured lawns, little springs and fountains and waterfalls. It's gorgeous, you can't imagine. He says, that's the good news. So he looks up and he says to the voice, is that who I think it is? He says, yes, it is, my son. I came to you with good news and bad news. So what the good news? The good news is our golf course is actually explained. What's the bad news? You're teeing off here tomorrow morning. Heaven on earth is not on the golf course. Why is heaven on earth not on the golf course? Because you're in that beautiful golf course and you're in a competition and you miss a simple 3-foot putt, then all of a sudden it's not heaven on earth. And it's the same thing with every other gratification in this world. There is what's called the if-so syndrome. Every if only syndrome is followed by a so what. If only I had the new Mercedes. If only I had that great job. If only Shelley would agree to marry me. If only said, he ran after Shelley, the gorgeous blonde hair with the blue eyes, and she finally did agree. And then one day after the Sheva Brachos, he doesn't know what I do. It's if only and so what. If our happiness is contingent on any if in this world, it's not happiness. So how do we get heaven on earth? Heaven on earth is something that gives us lasting happiness and lasting life no matter what. We get heaven on earth by one mitzvah in the Torah. I'm going to talk to people about Shabbat, and I can talk about Kashrut. Tonight, we're mainly talking about one mitzvah in the Torah, and the name of the mitzvah is Emunah. It's the first mitzvah in the 10 Commandments. It's the mitzvah of, I don't like to say believing in God, believing in Hashem. I'll say Hashem. Hashem means the name. You'll hear me say Hashem instead of God because the third commandment says not to take God's name in vain. So we like the G-O-D usually to keep it to prayer. So when I'm talking about the Almighty, I use the word Hashem, which in Hebrew means the name. Okay, Hashem. We have the mitzvah, the very first commandment of the 10 Commandments is, I am the Lord your God. What does it mean, I am the Lord? Okay, so somebody says, so what? What does this mean? We understand the first mitzvah. By the second mitzvah, you shall have no other God before me. So we learn from the first mitzvah is to believe in God. But you say believe, okay, I believe. You know, people say in the Southern Baptist, I believe, everybody, I believe. Okay, I believe. But what if he walks out of church and he doesn't have a smile on his face? You don't believe. He just doesn't. Because if anybody believes and knows what they're doing on this earth and knows that there's an almighty God in the world, it's right away heaven on earth. It's heaven on earth. And this is what we're here for. Let me ask a very basic question that few people ever ask themselves. I mean, really basic. Okay, this will blow you off the court. What are you doing here? What are we doing in this world? In fact, I'll cite some Kabbalah. Kabbalah is Jewish esoteric learning. Kabbalah says that the Jewish soul comes from underneath the heavenly throne. What we say in Hebrew, Tachat Kisei HaKavod. There is no closer proximity to the Almighty than close to the heavenly throne. Now let's take this. What is it? Hashem's some quarterback. He throws a bomb in the fourth quarter. He could throw a 90-yard pass and complete it. He takes the neshama and throws it all the way from the heavenly throne down to this world. And now, Lazer has good news and bad news for you. Okay? The good news is that this world is worse than purgatory. And the bad news, what everybody knows, that is purgatory. It's right here in this world. Why? Because this physical world is the furthest place in the spiritual and material realm from the Almighty that could be. There's no place further away. Even in what's called purgatory, what we know is purgatory because we know. I'm not going to go into that. Our purgatory is not what the nations of the world think purgatory is. It's not flaming fires. It's not flaming fires. You know what the flaming fire of purgatory is? Have you ever been embarrassed? Have you ever been embarrassed? Your face feels like it's on fire. Somebody really does it dirty to you in public, and your face feels on fire. That is the embarrassment of the next world. You know why? When we go up after 120 years in the next world, and this is really scary. The soul is like in a theater, in a straitjacket, in a chair. and there's an audience of all the great grandparents and all the big rabbis and all the tzaddikim on the balcony of the heavenly court judges. And the soul is turned around, looks at a big screen, and on that screen they air 2 movies. The first movie is everything we ever did in this world. Every little thing you think nobody ever saw you do, it's right there. But the second movie, by the way, if someone does tshuva, if someone does penitence for something that wasn't right, that gets erased. That gets edited out of the movie. But the second movie is much, much worse. The second movie is what you could have done. The second movie is the kind of life you could have lived if you only had a true connection to the Almighty. And that's the mitzvah we talk about. The first mitzvah of the Torah, your connection to God. So we say emunah, it's not just belief. Say the word belief, emunah, that's like kissing a bride through a veil. It's not the same. Okay. The word emunah is a pure and complete belief in the Almighty that connects you to the Almighty. What does it mean to be connected to the Almighty? What little Mikey says to mom and dad say, come on, let's go to shul for Shabbat. Mikey doesn't want to. He wants to watch the Oilers. Or he wants to watch Texas A&M, his football game. Shabbat. No, Mom, we got to go to shul. No. How come Mikey doesn't want to go to shul? Well, Mikey and Dad just said, we got to go to shul. You got to eat kosher. You got to eat Shabbat. You got to keep Shabbat. Mikey says, for what? Why? Because we're Jews, and that's what Jews do. Oh, yeah? Well, my friend is Episcopalian. He's having a great time on Shabbat. He's riding a bike, and they're going down South Texas, they're going to the beach, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. Well, why can't I? Mom and Dad might be giving every amenity in the world except one thing. The most important thing we could give our children, the most important thing we give ourselves is this one word, emunah, our connection with Hashem. You know why? What does this do for us? We all know, by the way, just to say a little bit of credentials. They say, you'll hear this rabbi talking about physical health. So what's he talking about physical health? The rabbi mentioned, I think I'm one of the old rabbis in the world. I know another one in California who teaches surfing, but I'm one of the only rabbis in the world that's a qualified, certified fitness trainer. Nutritionist. Okay, so when people come to me with their spiritual problems all the time, the physical problems are connected to spiritual problems because the body and soul are one. It's like it's someone that deals with an airplane. You look at a 737, what's a 737? The engine or the fuselage? It's both. It's both. You can't get that plane off the ground until the fuselage is in good shape and the engine is in good shape. The same with the body. The same with the body. Now, when we're talking about heaven on earth, what prevents our heaven on earth? Okay, anxiety, worry, fear, anger. Plug in all the negative emotions. Plug in all. What is a negative emotion? Now, let's ask something even more basic. Negative emotions, such as anger, fear, anxiety, stress, what do? They mess up our digestive system, right? An ulcer. They mess up our cardiovascular system, right? Could bring a person to a heart attack. They mess up our brain, could bring a person to a stroke. They mess up our breathing. That's everything. So hold it. Why is there so much stress and anxiety and negative emotions in the world when the body can't handle it, but yet everybody's got it? So wait a second. Hashem, what's going on here? Let's put it this way. We have a generation, parents came to me with a child, school, they said this kid's got ADSD. And I asked, what does he eat for breakfast? Cornflakes, and after his cornflakes, he's kind of addicted to Coke. Coke knows how to addict people. So before he goes to school, he has cornflakes, really sugary cornflakes, and it's not enough sugar. The Frosted Flakes has sugar, but he likes cornflakes. He likes to put the sugar on the cornflakes. So he puts white sugar on the cornflakes with milk, and then before he goes to school, he grabs a cup of cola and maybe a cookie or two. Wow, very nutritious. So the kid at 9:30 is swinging from the rafters like a chimpanzee, and his sugar's way up, and at 10 o'clock, crash, boom. He has a glycogen crash, and he's out like a light, can't hear anything. You say, ADHD, he's not attentive. I told the mother, we gave her a different diet for the child. Hey, how about a hard-boiled egg with a piece of whole wheat toast and lettuce and tomato with some kale or some spinach leaves or what? Oh, he will never eat it. Okay. Well, the alternative is to give him Ritalin or eventually maybe have type 1 diabetes, heaven forbid. That's the alternative. Think, this is the alternative. Well, she finally convinced him. I convinced the mother. In 3 weeks, not a month, not 2 months, not 3 months, there was no ADHD. And likely, people would have sugar problems because they eat sugar, they can't otherwise, are addicted to sugar, etc., etc., etc. We know that the way we eat affects the body. I didn't go into exercise. Really, the way we eat is 80% of fitness, and the other 20% is exercise. A person can be basically fit if he eats properly. But people eat improperly. We all know what the body needs. The body needs proteins. The body needs certain different types of proteins, amino acids. The body needs good fats. The body needs vitamins, minerals. Okay, so, what about the soul? What about the soul? The soul has needs too, but the soul is neglected. So let's ask even a more basic question. If the whole ball game is the body, and the Almighty is the omniscient creator, which he is, then what is the point of sending a body down here, going around and making all kinds of noise, and then putting it in the ground when it's finished? Is that the most inane, insensible thing? We think we're smarter than him. Tell you a little story. When I was varsity wrestling in high school, and Lazer already had desire, but I never had the physique and the physical ability as the guys in the team. But I always had the desire. Same thing in academics. I was never far from the smartest kid in the class, far from the strongest kid in the team, but always desired. But we had a star. He was Maryland state champion. We had a star. When I was in 11th grade, he was in 12th grade. He was the star. Greg Hunt was the guy's name. And one day he opened a big mouth to the coach. Our coach was a Maryland Hall of Famer. Before he died, he was a PhD in education, the son of coal miners from Pennsylvania. Robert McNeil. I'll never forget it. These are people that influenced me. So Greg, once he was the star, and he felt the stars after he won the county championship, and we were preparing for the state tournament. And he gave some lip to the coach. Coach says, Greg, go bring me a bucket. What do you want, coach? Bring me a bucket. So the coach wasn't messing around. He was a tough coach. So he brought a bucket in front of the whole team. So the team sit by the wall. We sat like around in a circle, like Indians in a powwow. And Greg said, listen, pull your sleeve up. Pull the sleeve up. Put your hand in the bucket. Put his hand in the bucket. Splash in the water. Splash the water. Splash the water. So he made a big splash. He said, pull your hand out. And he pulled out a stopwatch. Put on that stopwatch. It took 22.4 seconds for the water to be perfectly normal. And he said to him, Hunt, that's how long this team is going to be back to normal after I kick your you-know-what out of here. Mm-hmm. Stop and think. Well, this is Hashem. We come out here, we do a big splash, and then the world goes back to nothing. We all want to make our mark. How many of us make a mark, and we leave? Is this all there's to it? Can't be. Can't be. But if we think about the body, every day is a day closer. Yeah, that's big time depression. Every day is a day closer to a person's funeral. If we think about the soul, every day is a day closer to the Almighty if you're doing the right thing. If you're giving the soul the nutrition it needs, and the nutrition it needs is a connection with the Almighty. You know why? Because the soul, as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tells us in the very first chapter of the Zohar is a compilation of Jewish esoteric teachings. It's a tiny part of Hashem. He says, Chelek Elok Mima'al. Tiny part of Hashem. And that explains, there's another mitzvah in Torah, love your neighbor as yourself. Come on, guys. Who can love their neighbor? And the people in the Orthodox shul here love the people in the conservative shul, and the other people in the Reform shul, and the non-aligned. Wait, we're just talking about Jews. What about the non-Jews? What about the whites, the blacks, Israelis, Americans, Ashkenazi, Sephardi? Jews have so many divisions. So many divisions. They forget that Hitler was an equal opportunity murderer. that the Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, white, black, European, Oriental Jews, they all burned in the same ovens. When can we fulfill this mitzvah of loving each other? Well, we know that we're all walking around with the same spark of God. Same exact spark of God. Rabbi Yaakov Wolbe reminded me of something I said a couple of years ago. And I didn't plan it, but I said there's a lot of things I had planned to say that I'm getting a head tape. This is only Lazer's the microphone. This is the physical microphone. This is a flesh and blood microphone. But everything I say is, I'm being operated just like a puppet. You know what your souls are doing on earth? Everybody here who is below the age of 75, according to the Kabbalists, the leading Kabbalists, it's not your first time on earth. You know what you did in a former go-round? You got killed in the Holocaust. So now your soul comes back here for a correction. Wait a second, that doesn't make sense. The Gemara teaches us that a martyr goes to the highest point in Gan Eden. No higher point, true. Just imagine that I buy you tickets to the Super Bowl. How much tickets to the Super Bowl cost? $1,500? Something like more? $2,000? Up further? Okay. You come from Indonesia, you're a business associate, and we make big bucks together, and I buy you a ticket to the Super Bowl. Come, see, this is America's #1 sports event of the year. And I take this Indonesian, and $2,500, get a good ticket to the Super Bowl, and sit down, and he's bored stiff. Outside of America, nobody plays football. Outside of America, football is soccer. America is the only country in the world that calls football soccer. Football, America and Canada. Okay, America and Canada, only 2 countries in the world in football and soccer. Everywhere else, you see what happens in Argentina. When Argentina plays the UK in what's called the Mundial, the World Soccer thing, you've got 250 million people watching that game. It's phenomenal. They're crazy. And they'll kill in that game. They have to have armed guards on each side of the stadium where the Brits are sitting and where the Argentinians are sitting. Well, okay, so take this Indonesian. He doesn't understand what's flying. Doesn't know football. Never seen football. Doesn't know. You're enraptured. What a game. What a game. First down. What's a first down? Second down. Third down. Last down. You don't understand. So take a neshama, a Jewish neshama, and became a martyr. Okay, there's a law, highest point. And go to the highest point, and they say to that Jewish neshama, where would you like to be? Would you like to hear a lecture from Maimonides? Would you like to hear the singing of the Levites in the Beit HaMikdash, the time of the Holy Temple? I said, well, would you like to hear the Gaon of Vilna giving a discourse on Masechet Baba Kama? What's Masechet Baba Kama? What's Baba Kama? He knows Hebrew. He says, Baba Kama, you mean my grandmother got up? No. That's the name of Masechet. It's not. He doesn't know what's flying. And he's sad. He's bored. It's like taking somebody that likes country music to listen to the Boston Philharmonic playing Brahms. Come on. You know, where's Glenn Campbell? He wants Glenn. Hey, what's flying up here? So Shem sees that the soul is unhappy. Shem sees the neshama, my soul. You have to know that everyone here is a son or daughter of Hashem. Because the Torah says, you're all beloved sons and daughters of Hashem. And that's part of the mitzvah of loving each other. Because when we look at another person's soul, not at their body, bodies cause dissension and separation. Looking at the light of another person coming in his eyes, if you can focus on that divine emanation another person, every person has, then you can love that person automatically. And that's how you do it. But few people do that. Because few people put emphasis on their soul, emphasize the body. So Hashem says, Neshama, how come you're not enjoying yourself up here? Says Hashem, I don't know what's flying. This is all a bore. That neshama is lacking 2 things. Torah and emunah. So Hashem sends the neshama back here to do a correction, and every neshama in this room has one common denominator connection. In previous go-rounds, you're perfect tzaddikim, but you lack one mitzvah, and that's the mitzvah of emunah, learning and believing in the Almighty and having that pure and complete connection with the Almighty, and that's your job here. And doing that, we enhance that by Torah, by getting to know Hashem. We get to know Hashem by way of His Torah. It sounds scary, but it's really so very simple. So very simple, and it brings us to heaven on earth. This is the only solution that you can attain true inner peace. There is no psychiatrist can give you inner peace. Psychiatrists can give a person meds to calm a person down. It does not solve the problem at the root. Okay, there are no meds that solve a psychiatric problem at the root. Just calm a person so the person can function. Okay, what is a root core solution to a person? Good tell. I'll tell you a story that happened right here in Texas with a family in Houston. And Mrs. Goldberg, she gave me permission to tell this story. It's a family in Houston, they're lawyers, and they originally came from Israel way back when, and their son came here, and he came into a bad crowd. The son, when aged 19, had a firearm. He was involved in a terrible, terrible crime, and he was sent up to Texas State Pen, life imprisonment, a Jewish boy. And in this particular, I think the name of the prison is Rosemount. Rosemount, it's not, I think it's maybe about an hour and a half from Houston, that's all, south of here.
Huntsville.
Okay. All right, so it's right by here. And eventually, he started corresponding with me, the young man who was behind bars. It wasn't easy. They put this young man in solitary confinement for his own good, because there are all these big cowboys and big football player criminals and this and that, and the boy was in danger. Not only that, but he was angry. He was angry, and he was a danger to himself, danger to other people. They put him in solitary. It's not a picnic, being in Texas State Pen, a Jewish boy, and in solitary confinement. Well, he decided that that's it. I don't know how he prepared some type of rope or something. He decided that tonight he's going to call it in. That's it, and no more. That day, Hashem, in His masterful divine providence, we call in Hebrew Hashgacha Pratit, it's amazing. Hashem sent a chaplain from Florida, the Aleph Institute. And Aleph Institute had a few books, one called The Trail to Tranquility by Lazer Brody, another one called The Garden of Emunah, written by Rabbi Shalom, translated in English by Rabbi Lazer Brody, and brought these two books to this inmate. Well, in solitary confinement, you don't have much to do, and this was something new, so he started reading those books, and he didn't put them down. He wrote me that those books saved him from suicide, because he never learned that there was an Almighty, and he heard of the Almighty, but he never learned about Emunah, that he could have his own personal connection with Emunah. That did. It went further. If they finally, he got a job, and they let him operate the boiler room. So this young man started running the boiler room, and he had a 6-hour shift at night, and he would speak to the Almighty in his own words for 6 hours every night. Eventually, they got him to fill in, had a thing with the guards. The guards didn't have him to fill in. They thought maybe in those little black boxes there were some narcotics or whatever. It's a way to smuggle things in. One thing after another. Emunah not only saved his life, in the last letter I received from him, he wrote me like this. He wrote, Rabbi Brody, I've got walls and barbed wire in front of me, behind me, to the right and left. I have a concrete ceiling on top of me, but I'm a free man. Because the concrete ceiling does not stop my prayers, does not stop my Torah learning, does not stop me from the Almighty. And he says, I have discovered a heaven on earth. It's a showstopper. Wait a second. Heaven on earth in Texas State Penn when you're a Jewish boy? No. Life imprisonment. You can't look forward to getting married. You can't look forward to getting kids. I don't think you can look forward to a pardon for whatever thing is. The only thing you do, he told me that there's a reciprocal agreement between Israel and Texas that his best case scenario is that Texas allows him to be transferred to a penitentiary in Israel. Okay, but this is a person's best case scenario. The guy's got nothing to look forward to, nothing to live for, and life becomes a heaven on earth. And it brought it from the point of suicide, heaven on earth. So wait a second, let's take a look. If it did this for a young man named George Goldberg in the state of Texas, and this is something you can verify, everything is, it's not some, we don't come in and tell stories and truth. These are actual things. And the last time I was in Houston with Rav Shalom, and his mother and his sister-in-law, they came up, and I had never met her. He just came up, said to Rav Shalom, I said, thank you. We're talking about the real deal. So what it could do for someone like this, what about for me? What happens? Let's learn really quick where our negative emotions come from. What stresses a person out? What leads a person to anxiety? Two things. And I take things very simply. You have to understand the Torah. This is not my word. This is right out of the Torah. Okay, right out of the Gemara. We take things that's so simple. Life is so simple. King Solomon, the wisest man that ever walked the face of the earth, he wrote this. He wrote, Elokim barat adam yashar, v'hema bikshu lecheshbonot rabim. That Hashem created the person straight. But they confuse things. When you really look at things, you look at truth. Truth is simple. In Kabbalah, the color that represents Hashem is white. The line that represents Jewish ideology is a straight line. It's the closest place between 2 points. The closest between this world and that world, the closest between our soul and Hashem. So, what's going on here? Hashem wants us to have a connection with Him. And we have a connection with Him, we neutralize the two sources of negative emotions. The source of our stress and the source of our anxiety. Okay, why do we have negative emotions? Beloved brothers and sisters, sorry to say, but we're all a bunch of control freaks. And look at somebody, a mother-in-law that wants to tell you what to do, and a boss that wants to tell you what to do, and there's a sister that wants to intervene in your life and tell you what to do, and a neighbor that wants to tell you what to do, and you tell you about that person, oh, they're a control freak. We see other people's blemishes in ourselves because other people mirror us, especially a husband and wife mirror one another. Okay, husband, you think your wife is on your cage, Hashem is showing you a mirror. We've got to correct this. So, we're control freaks. Why are we control freaks? As soon as we feel that we lose the control of a situation, anxiety levels rise. If you can see in your soul, and why do I mention the soul? Why not the psyche, emotions? Because emotions come from, the emotions are in the brain, and the soul is in the brain. Emotions come from the center of the brain, which is the soul, because that's the human life source. What's the difference between a dead body and a live body? Dead body's got 10 fingers and 10 toes and 2 legs and 2 arms and 2 eyes and a head. But live body, there is no physician in the country, no professor in Harvard Med School that can explain what the life source is. Everybody in Torah knows what the life source is. A Bacher in his first year of Shiva knows what the life source is. And I'll even go further. A 7-year-old learning Chumash Breshit, he knows what the life source is. That Hashem breathed the life source, which is the soul, into a person. And the soul in Hebrew is a very special tongue. Not Hebrew, we say Lashon HaKodesh, the language of the Bible, the holy tongue. Neshama is the soul. Neshima is a breath. Comes from the same word. Because Hashem breathed the soul into the nostrils of Adam. Same way, each one of us. Each one of us, we get our biology, our physical DNA, we get it from mom and dad. The Gemara also tells us which part of our DNA, mom and dad. You don't need to go to medical school. If you want to learn genetics, get up to go on tractate. Neva, you learn genetics, great. Exactly. Everything's in the Torah. Everything. And you know why kids are far away from Torah? Kids don't know that Torah is cool. Let me ask you a question real quick. Trivia. Who invented surfing? You guys go down there, they have beaches in Corpus Christi or down on the coast. You know, I don't know, they have waves in the Gulf of Mexico. Can you go surfing in the Gulf of Mexico?
Barely.
Okay. Who invented surfing? It's in the Gemara. It's in the Gemara. Rabbi Meir Balas and the tractate Yevamos. It's one of the most difficult tractates of Torah. And not many people learn it. Not many people make it to the end. But when they get to the end, there's a Maisa, there's a story about a shipwreck where Rabbi Meir Balanes was a shipwreck. And he was in a tramp steamer. And a tempest hit the ship went smithereens, and everything was lost. And Rabbi Meir was out in the drink in the Mediterranean, and he grabbed a plank, like the Beach Boys, you know, and he just surfed his way to shore. Or Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Gamliel, they were on a ship, they were well-to-do, they were his teachers, and they saw the shipwreck far away, and they knew that Rabbi Meir Balanes was on that ship, and they lamented Rabbi Meir. They get ashore, Rabbi Meir's at shore before they are, and he's giving a Torah lesson. Said, Meir, what's going on here? He says, I grabbed a plank and caught every wave and went to shore, and here I am. That's right. The first mention of surfing in history, the Gemara tractate Yevamos. Okay, well, it's not the Beach Boys and, you know, what do they call it? Ventura Beach. We see everything is in the Torah. Everything is in the Torah. Torah is the manufacturer's instructions. If you buy a new Mitsubishi, you go in the glove compartment, you get your manufacturer's instructions. So this is what the Torah is for us. The number one thing a soul needs to operate properly, where your engine humming, your emotional engine hums, is a connection with Hashem. And we have a connection with Hashem, you know that Hashem runs everything. And it's what King David says, I place my whole life in your hands. King David, who is Mashiach, and for kids that think that Yiddishkeit is not cool, that Judaism is not cool, tell them their teachers didn't teach about surfing, their parents. King David, you know, if anybody into MMA and this stuff. King David, holy King David, who wrote the book of Psalms, the bestseller in history. And you take this big, what do they call this guy?
Life.
I don't know, this great big 400-pound guy in MMA, Eric something, what do they call him? Sweet bean or string bean or sweet potato, something like that. I mean, they put him in, King David would eat him up. King David, when he was 60 years old, he was in hand-to-hand combat with 10 Philistines, all the size of Goliath. One Goliath when he was 12. 60, there was a war between Israel and the Philistines. King David was in hand-to-hand combat, and his general Yoav saw him. They were not beating him, he was not beating them. He was fending off knives, swords, spears, and he was trying to, he couldn't get at them, they couldn't get at him. He says, Your Majesty, I'm retiring you from combat. The commander-in-chief of Israelite forces, you are slowing down. What do you mean slowing down? And he couldn't defeat 10 people? So he can't defeat 10 people. Why? Because when King David was 30, if you put him in the U.S. Olympics throwing the javelin, he could throw it maybe 4 times further than anybody else. The Gemara tells us that King David would throw a spear, javelin, and it would skewer 30 enemy soldiers. That's the velocity the spear could throw. This is King David. King David, they're talking about Abraham. You know, 3 people think of the Jew as, you know, the fit on the roof. It's not like that. The Gemara says that the Jews are the brazen people. And if you don't understand, look at Jews around here, and the story of the Holocaust that the Jews hid under the table, that's not true either. You know, the story of Mordechai or the Razina Rebbe, you know, it's forget it. But see, the potential of a Jew, the potential, You know why you're not fulfilling your potential? Because you're working on 1/10 of your motor of what you can do. You plug into your potential. The Almighty is beyond limits. The Almighty is infinite. You're walking around, every one of you, with a soul that's a part of the Almighty. Since the soul is part of the Almighty, you have the DNA, the spiritual DNA, Father. We mentioned you have the physical DNA of mom and dad. But the spiritual DNA is of the Almighty. That's why the Gemara tells us there's 3 partners in a creational person. Mom, Dad, and the Holy One. So when this becomes a central part of our life, our awareness of our souls and giving our souls what we need, then we realize that we don't have to control. Hashem's in control. So we said the first thing that causes a person super stress is when he or she cannot control their own life. The second thing that causes a person super stress when they encounter a problem that they do not have a solution for. This can be a financial problem. You have to come up with X amount of money during the coming month to pay X amount of bills, and you only have a potential of 1/2 X, and you do not see how possibly you come up. You don't have any rich uncle that's going to leave you an inheritance in some Brazilian plantation, and you haven't bought a ticket to the Irish lottery, and if you do buy a ticket to the Irish lottery, what are the chances? And a person's frustration level goes up and up and up. Especially, heaven forbid, when the person goes to the doctor, and the doctor can't find a solution for his problem. Not only that, when the doctor doesn't even have a prognosis, when he's got a proper prognosis, a good diagnosis, that's already 50% of the problem. But what about if the doctor says, and many doctors do this, many don't, because there are plenty of them who are doctors, and they realize that they are messengers from the Almighty. But what about the doctor that says to a person, heaven forbid, that person, I'm going to say you, that person only has a few weeks to live? They said that to my dad. They said that to my dad. When the ink on my rabbinical ordination was wet, it was brand new, and I got a letter. I was now learning for my next ordination as a rabbinical court judge. The basic rabbinical degree is called Yura, and rabbinical court judge is called Yadin, and there's another ordination called Kosher, which enables you to be the rabbi of a city. Okay. I had one more test to pass to become rabbi of a city. And this test was in the laws of mourning, which we call smachas. We don't like to say the word mourning because it's very powerful. The laws of smachas. I passed every other test that needed to be kosher for Rav of a city. So the next day, I was going to begin to learn the laws of mourning. That day, I get a call from my sister, who flew in where my parents were, Maryland. My sister lives in Boulder, Colorado. And she says, Lazer, get home immediately. I said, what's the matter? She said, Dad has been diagnosed with 4 different types of the big C. Nasty big C. We don't like to say it. They say in English that the curse words are 4 letters. This curse word is 6 letters. It begins with a C and ends with an R. You don't want to hear about it in anybody else. And if Hashem should take this and throw it on the enemies of Israel, and everybody that has this disease should be clean, should be healthy. Amen. As I'm saying this, I'm praying for this. Baruch Hashem. Hashem, let's talk. Give her a clean bill of health. So my sister says, you got to get home. You got to get home fast. I said, Dad's got it in a bone marrow, and we didn't tell you about this, but he's been having blood transfusions, and the doctor says no more blood transfusions. He's got it in the lung, he's got it in his shoulder, in the bone, and he had in his blood. So I said, what's the matter? So the doctor says that Pop's got 6 weeks to live, 3 months best case scenario, 12 weeks best case scenario, but more likely 6 weeks. So without even blinking, I said to my sister, I said, you and your doctors don't run the world. My Gemara in Curated says that Hashem holds the keys to life and death, to parnasa, to a person's income, and to a person's soulmate. Okay, so the best matchmaker is Hashem. If Hashem holds the keys to your soulmate, if you're not married, go to Hashem. Go to Hashem. Don't go to a matchmaker. You can make a phone call to a matchmaker, but don't go crazy. Ask Hashem for your soulmate. And then I went to see a secret tzaddik in Tel Aviv named Rabbi Avram Fish. He was only revealed after he died, but had inroads, knew who this was. He was a Talmud, the Baba Sali, Moroccan tzaddik, very. And I went to him, and he's the type of guy, he lived in a tenement in downtown Tel Aviv, and his Shabbat, we had very simple, like benches and things like that, army-sized cauldrons, and all the junkies and all the addicts and everybody would come and get a Shabbat meal by him. And he'd be sleeping on the floor. This guy was Avram Avinu, and you couldn't see, he had this stained white shirt, and he chewed tobacco and had tobacco stains. It's crazy, you can't imagine. But he's a hidden tzaddik. He made himself disdained that you'd look at him and you wouldn't think twice about it. So I told him about my father. He says, I take your father's disease and throw it on the fishes in the sea. So wait, I better not eat fish for the next couple of months. But he said, you got to tell your father to do 3 things. He says, tell your father, give him 3 mitzvahs that he could do, easy mitzvahs. So I asked my dad. My dad washed his hands in the morning, and he threw away his straight razor and shaved with an electric razor. And he said, Modeh ani lefanecha, in the morning. Thank you, Hashem. The first word we say when we wake up. I said, Pop, can you do this? My father lived for another 9.5 years. Another 9.5 years. The power of 3 mitzvahs. And these are 3 unimportant mitzvahs, 3 simple mitzvahs I knew he could do. Let him live for 9.5 years. Another true story. There's so much I want to share with you. Okay. Ralph, throw a tomato at me, but we've got 5 minutes left. Okay.
Nobody's stopping you.
Okay. So much with it. True story. I'm going to take you to Haifa in 1997. It is 90 minutes before Shabbat. Anybody been to Israel here? Okay. Outside of Haifa, there's called the checkpost crossroads. It takes you, go to Haifa, you know where the big refinery is? It's that side. It's east of Haifa. And one road takes you to Jezreel Valley, one road takes you up north, one road takes you east. And there is a settlement there called Kfar Hasidim. Kfar Hasidim, there's a Kiruv Rabbi Emanuel Tehila. There's a Kfar Hasidim. Rabbi Emanuel, I heard this story directly from Rabbi Emanuel. He told it to me. And he is the Baal Maaseh. He's the one who told about it. Rabbi Emanuel had to get something urgent in Haifa, and he's driving home an hour and a half before Shabbat, and there's a whole busload of, where the bus stop is, there's soldiers with their hitchhiking, trying to get home before Shabbat. So he picks up a paratrooper. He had the kids in the back seat and all kinds of groceries and stuff like that, last minute stuff for Shabbat. And he sent the kids in the back seat, had room for one hitchhiker. He said, a paratrooper, come in the car. Came in the car. So he takes him out of Haifa and says, where do you need to go? He said, I need to go to Beersheba. He says, what do you mean Beersheba? Shabbat is less than an hour and a half. You never get to Beersheba. If you get a chopper right now and lands in the middle of the street, it's barely going to make it to Beersheba. And then you're hitchhiking, you're going to pick you up. You're going to come there late Friday night. He says, by the time I get a furlough, I got to get home. I don't care. He says, wait a second. Do me a favor. I live right here in Kfar Hasidim. It's 12 minutes to my house. My wife is a great cook. I know you guys work hard. One thing, when it's in Israeli infantry, paratroopers, Golani, Givati, you get home on Shabbat and you drop. Okay, so I tell you what. He says, I'm going to bring you home for Shabbat. He said, come on, Rabbi. You don't understand. There's no Judaism in my life. I don't care about Shabbat. I don't care about eating kosher. I don't care about anything. Okay, this is Israeli. Born to Israel, born in Beersheba in the army. Rabbi says, do you a favor. Take good care of you. You could sleep all the Shabbat. You don't have to go to synagogue. All I want you to do is I'm going to wake you up so you can eat good. You come back and I'll make you a deal. On Motzei Shabbat, on Saturday night, I will drive you back to base. Okay? Drive you back to base. So this is a pretty good thing. Convinced him, and he took him home, saved him from Chilul Shabbat. He took the soldier home, and now after Shabbat, soldier he'd slept the whole Shabbat, like they said, but it woke him up to eat, and he ate like a horse, hungry, and the guy was skinny, Israeli paratrooper. Now they get in the car, and he takes him back to base on Saturday night. And the base is right on the Lebanon border. Even from Haifa, it's a good hour and 3/4 by the time we get up there. And Rabbi says to him, I want to teach you one little mitzvah. He says, come on, Rabbi, don't get heavy on me. Shabbat was really nice, the food was great, but, don't start proselytizing with me. We made a deal. Oh, let's come on Shabbat. Rabbi says, no, but you don't understand. The Gemara says, if you look in the Ethics of the Fathers, in the Mishnah, chapter 4, Rabbi Lazer ben Yaakov says that if you do one mitzvah, you create this rainbow-sized angel. Okay, boy mitzvah, boy katilo. Okay, so you do. He says, I want you to have protection. And this was the time when Israel was in and out of Lebanon, in and out of Lebanon, in and out of Lebanon. Okay, and it's obvious that he's going into Lebanon. And he says, I want you to be protected. So this is already convincing. This is already something. He says, well, what's the mitzvah? He says, I'm going to teach you to put your shoes on according to halacha. Can you do that? He says, what's entailed in it? Rabbi says, it's really easy. You put your right shoe on, don't tie it. You put your left shoe on. Tie the left shoe, tie the right shoe. He says, wait a second, Rabbi, that's a little confusing. Rabbi said, I see, what you guys, you take apart your weapons and you do all this kind of stuff and putting on your shoes is confusing. Let's do it again. Right shoe on, left shoe on. Left shoe tie, right shoe tie. I'll do it. Let's do it like you guys do marching. Right, left, right. Okay, we're going to do right, left, right. That's the way you do the mitzvah, putting your shoes on. Okay? They convinced him. And he says, you're going to have this big protective angel. It's going to protect you. Okay. So the guy practices it. He does it. He said, let's do it one time. So they stop by the side of the road. And the rabbi buys him whatever he wants, chocolate or cigarettes or Coke and this and that. And he said, let's practice doing one thing I'm here. So he took off his shoes and he put them back on. Great, now you get your shoes on according to halacha. The next day, he took him back to base, separated, said hello, didn't exchange phone numbers, this and that. It was a one-time Shabbat. Okay, what do they call it in America? One-night stand. Okay, it was one Shabbat stand. Okay, no strings attached. Next morning's cloudy, and you get message, no, can't shop into Lebanon because the weather's cloudy. Monday morning, again cloudy. Tuesday morning, the clouds lift. Got 2 platoons, 2 Israeli Yisor helicopters, and 1 platoon of Golani, 1 platoon of paratroopers, infantry guys with the 2 helicopter crews, and they're going into Lebanon. Okay, so they got to gear up at 6:30 in the morning, and everybody into the chopper. Well, he's into the chopper, and he was a company sergeant, but the battalion sergeant is there, and he's giving orders, and he's got his guys there, and sitting with them, and he forgets, oh my goodness, I'm going into Lebanon. I put on my shoes regular. I forgot to put them on the way Rabbi Tehillah taught me to do. So he runs out of the chopper, and he runs back in the tent. He's going to take his shoes off and put them back on. So the battalion sergeant yells, saying, where the heck you going? I'm going to bust you. You're going to court-martial for the next 6 months. And the helicopters take off without him. It's 0063, boom, boom. That's the exact time. Take off without him, according to mission orders. And he's left in the tent. This was February 23rd, 1997. It became one of the worst tragedies in Israeli military history. The 2 helicopters on the way to Lebanon, they got too close to one another. One's rotor hit the wing of another. This was known as the Shal Yeshuv tragedy because over the Moshav, Shal Yeshuv on the Lebanon border, they crashed, came down. Nobody came out alive. 73 dead Israeli soldiers. In Israel, what used to be before the big Russian Aliyah and the big Ethiopian Aliyah, everybody knew everybody else. If a soldier got killed, that's your sister's brother-in-law's neighbor's son. You know, you get somebody, everybody knew everybody else. Everybody knew everybody else. 73 people, the country stopped. That was it. And a lot of people, the left took this was the impetus, like the Vietnam movement here, because soldiers said, no, get out of Lebanon. And then when it got to Lebanon, and able to Hezbollah to come in South Lebanon, a whole big mess. This one mitzvah of putting your shoes on according to halacha that saved this paratrooper's life. And nobody was alive to court-martial. No. But he made tshuva. So if this is the slightest mitzvah, maybe one of the most insignificant mitzvahs in halacha, and that's the power to save a life, what about the most important mitzvah in the Torah, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the mitzvah to believe in Hashem? Wow. It is such a baddie. Rambo size? The mitzvah of believing Hashem does not create an angel. It invokes divine assistance, Hashem himself, and I'll explain to you why. The Torah was given on Mount Sinai. Hashem said the first two of the Ten Commandments. I am the Lord your God, you have no other God before me. And all of Am Yisrael, they heard the song like the light show and this and that, and they yelled out to Moses, we can't stay alive, our neshamas are leaving. They felt the neshamas in their jugular about to leave them. Moshe, tell Hashem to tell you and not to tell us, you tell us. Okay. And Hashem was happy with that. He says, oh, I'm glad they fear me. I hope that they'll always fear me. So Moshe, Hashem told the Moshe, Moshe Yanenu B'kol. And Moshe repeated what Hashem said to him. So we have 2 mitzvahs said by Hashem, and 611 mitzvahs said by Moses. Moses was an emissary. The word malach, the word for angel in Hebrew, means emissary. It means both angel and emissary. So our Chazal in the Gemara, they tell us that as, the Gemara tells us, the commentary in the Mishnah, as Rabbi Lazer ben Yaakov says that he who does a mitzvah creates an angel, that's about 613 mitzvahs. But he who does the first mitzvah, which is a positive mitzvah, believing Hashem, and the second mitzvah was a negative mitzvah, don't have any other God, that if somebody does idolatry, it's not an angel that comes and it's Hashem himself that punishes. But if someone believes in Hashem, you know what it is, believe in Hashem? In a minute we'll talk what you have to do to believe in Hashem. It is Hashem personally that comes to the aid of that person. So now, we said that the first thing that stresses out a person is when we're control freaks and we can't control the situation. It's out of our control. We said that the second thing that stresses a person is when he needs a solution to a problem. He doesn't have a solution. And the doctor doesn't have a solution. The lawyer doesn't have a solution. The CPA doesn't have a solution. And no one has a solution. That's Good News Week. Like the guy in the golf. The Good News Week is when no human being has a solution. What happens? As long as the lawyer's got a solution, I'm dependent on the lawyer. He's going to save me out of court, keep me out of jail. As long as the doctor's got a solution, I'm dependent on the doctor. He's going to cure me. As long as the CPA's got a solution, a CPA's going to save me $50,000 in back taxes. Okay, otherwise we get a $50,000 bill from the IRS, right? But when the CPA doesn't have a solution, the doctor doesn't have a solution, the lawyer doesn't have a solution, then what do? Carole King answered that question. You got Hashem, do, you got Hashem. You just call my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. That's it. It's about Hashem, do. It's all about it. If you listen, you can listen. Hashem's talking to us, everything. You see him everywhere. Everywhere. Why do people not call out Hashem? Because they don't believe in him. They think that it's something high in the sky, pie in the sky. Oh yeah, they believe it's nice to know that Moses was once on White Sinai. And it's nice Jewish, what did they say? Some people, it's called Jewish folklore. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are Jewish folklore. It's our great-grandparents. If a person knows his lineage, he could trace him all the way back to way back. And if you don't know your family lineage, your rabbinical lineage from rabbi to student, rabbi to student, rabbi to student, rabbi to student, you could trace that right back to Moses. That's no problem. You know why? Because we're only 113 generations from Mount Sinai. 3,350 years, that's all. It's not that much. So say an average generation, 33 years. That's 100 years. I'm saying average generation of 30 years. That's no big deal. It is really close. That is no big deal. But we all know. But what's the difference between Judaism and every other? Every other religion has a prophet or someone that saw the light. He himself, I had a dream that Hashem revealed himself to me. Not by us. All our great-grandparents were in Har Sinai or Mount Sinai. 2 million people, men, women, and children. They heard Hashem say, I am the Lord your God. You have no other God before me. And guess what? You can hear it too. You can hear it too. If you're spiritually sensitive enough. You know, if someone's a music major hears nuances in music that other people don't. He knows this is the bassoon, and this is the oboe, and this is the violin, and this is the cello, and this is major, and this is minor. You know that. A fitness instructor and a trained athlete feels in his body what a couch potato does not. A couch potato doesn't feel anything in the body, but when you are running and when you're working out, and you have a cramp and also you know exactly where it's coming from, you have strength in muscle, weakness in muscle, you're aware of your own anatomy, you're near where it's going on. The same thing with our spiritual anatomy. When we train our souls in emunah, we can hear Hashem's voice. You know why? Because when you call out to him, he answers. A signed check from King David. Karov Hashem lechol korav lechol asher yik'u be'emet. Jews say this 3 times a day, that Hashem is close to all that hear him, to all that hear him in truth. And there's one other thing. If we ask ourselves, what is the epitome of good in the world? What's the epitome of good in the world? What's the difference? We're talking about a life of heaven on earth. Let's take 2 examples of 2 individuals in the United States of America. 2 types of individuals have a life that is a hell on earth. When you leave here, go back home and Google Hell Week U.S. SEALs. Let me show you a movie. What happens to a United States SEAL before his graduation, a week that he has to prove everything he trained? If someone doesn't know who this guy is and who his commanders are, I think the United States of America, they're worse sadists than any other citizen. Wait a second. Let's go and interview the SEAL on the 5th day of Hell Week when he hasn't slept for 5 days. His head's under the water and he's near drowned and he's exhausted. Excuse me, young man. Why not be a mail clerk? We'll put you in Walter Reed Hospital, an air-conditioned office. Be a mail clerk in Washington, D.C. Plenty of bars and nightclubs. Have a good time down there. Well, easy. What? He's not getting treated. He said, they're going to have to kill me. Well, what do you want to subject yourself for? Because I want to be one of America's best. He believes in his country. He wants to be best. He wants to be number 1. And this is like the number 1. Okay, the Rangers argue with that. There's a Ranger in the room, that I'd be in trouble. Because I once said that, and there was a U.S. Ranger in the room in Seattle, Washington. And he said, Rabbi, they're not number 1. We are. Okay. Yeah, that's big. Learn that the SEALs and Rangers. Okay, that's number 1. Let's take someone else who has a very tough life. How about somebody boxing on the U.S. Olympic team and is a contender to represent the United States American heavyweight class? And he gets in the ring, he works for hours a day, he lifts weights, he runs, he sweats, he spars with his coach. And he drops his left for a moment, and his coach plasters him across the left side of his face. What does he do? He hugs the coach. Somebody hits you on the left side of the face, what are you going to do? Hey, if I bang you, you're super angry, your anxiety level go up. What's going on here? Somebody throws somebody else in the ring, you doesn't know what they're doing here, getting hit left and right. And the guy, excuse me, the coach has hit you pretty bad. Get out of here. No. What does he want? He wants to stand on the podium with the gold medal and hear the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. He doesn't mind the coach hit him because he knows that the coach hit him with controlled power. The Russian will not control his power. The Russian will try and knock him out. So he knows it's for his own good. So we see people suffering, but for them the suffering is Gan Eden. Now let's open up. So what are we doing on earth? We ask ourselves in the beginning, what are we doing on earth? That Hashem takes our souls and throws us all the way down here so we can earn our way back. What's Hashem, a heavenly ping pong player? Playing ping pong with the souls? What's going on here? Doesn't make sense. We said that Hashem sends us down, so we do this correction of learning emunah, because everybody else in the spiritual realm, everybody else knows that God runs the world except for human beings on planet Earth. Human beings on planet Earth is the furthest place away from Hashem. So Hashem sent us down here so that we earn our place. And we too, by earning our place, by learning emunah, we can have heaven on earth. We gain the spiritual awareness to see that whatever is happening in our life comes from a loving Father in heaven, not a sadistic Father in heaven, heaven forbid. Somebody said, with my problems in life, I'm sadistic. If it weren't immodest, I invite you up to feel Lazer Brody's broken bones. I walk around a bag of broken bones. Okay, there's one you can see right here. This is a nice smooth wrist. Look at the bone protruding from this wrist. 2 bones protruding from here, a broken collarbone, never healed, and all kinds of broken toe, broken fingers, here this finger. The nose. I look at Houston and my nose looks at Dallas. Okay. And the body's nothing. The soul has got so many scars on it, forget it. Were it not for my connection with Hashem, I'd be a walking bag of PTSD. For sure. People say, how could you have a smile on your face all the time? What do you smoke? I don't smoke anything. Don't smoke anything. Keep myself in shape. Don't use substances. It's all from Hashem. It's emunah. Talk to anyone. Every person in this room has an acute problem. One person has a problem with acute marital problem. Another person has a health issue. Another person has a financial issue. Another person has a special needs child. Another person has an unbearable boss that he can't leave the job because he doesn't have any job offer. Another person is a teacher with kids that she doesn't, it's just Gehenna in that classroom. Whatever it is, every person in this room, why you know, because people come to me with their problems. You look at each other, and this one's got her clothes on, he's got his, his six-pack six-pack abs from the gym, and she's got her Estee Lauder, Helena Rubinstein, way mixed up. We're all trying to look good. But the real smile comes from inside, the inner peace. But each one of us has a problem we can't control, and each one of us has a problem there's no solution for. So what do? We go to the Almighty that has solutions and can control the problem. Why does He do that to us? Why does He give everyone in this room, why does He give us Jewish people, especially Jewish people? Why not? We see our neighbors, and our neighbors aren't suffering this problem, and our neighbors, they never went through Holocaust, and they never threw inquisitions, and they don't have anti-Semitism, that's us. And even now, I'm talking about USA right now, very fresh words in the minds of Jewish people, Jersey City, Pittsburgh. They just said it. Jersey City and Pittsburgh. Now America's like saying Auschwitz, my dad. Jersey City, Pittsburgh. What comes to your mind? First thing you hear, Pittsburgh or Jersey City. It's going crazy. So what's Hashem doing to us? This is a loving Father in heaven. Hashem wants us to be close to Him. Why does Hashem want us to be close to Him? Open up Psalm 73, where the Mashiach, Mashiach means Messiah. Messiah means Hashem's anointed. That King David was anointed by the prophet Samuel on divine order. King David, who was also the great-great-great-grandfather of Mashiach, may come soon. Amen. King David gives us the key to what's good in life. In Psalm 73, he says, Kirovat Elokim li tov, that the closeness to Hashem is ultimate good. This is the spiritual vitamin that the soul needs. This is the soul's protein, and the soul's B12, and the soul's iron, and the soul's omega-3, closest to Hashem. If a person does not have close to Hashem, he's nervous, then the problem. The closer we are to Hashem, the more we feel Him in our lives, the more we depend on Him. Outside, still the same thing. If someone wants instant gratification, why does Hashem do that? Imagine a paratrooper would say, oh, basic training is too hard. Jump school is too hard. Advanced infantry training is too hard. This is too hard. I want to be a paratrooper without that. Sorry, my son, you can't be a paratrooper without that, because you have to be prepared for combat. Beloved brothers and sisters, this world is the battlefield. This world is one battle from beginning to the end. But you can go through this world like a victim. You can go through this world like a U.S. SEAL that wouldn't change his position for all the money he could buy. How do we do this? We do this emunah. So what does emunah mean? How does it manifest itself? Emunah means your own personal connection with God. And I'm going to give everybody something super easy to do. Baruch Hashem, you have Rabbi Walby here, my esteemed friend, spiritual brother. You're happy to have him. You're lucky to have him. And you don't know, I don't want to embarrass the Rav, because halacha only allows me to say part of his praise in front of him. I could say much of his praise behind his back. So maybe I'll tell Rabbi Arya Walby and Rabbi Yaakov Walby, get out of the room so I can tell who they are, but that's embarrassing too. That's a little bit chutzpahdik, but lucky to have. All your questions about mitzvah number 2 to mitzvah number 613, ask to them. I will give you something easy to do to enable you to perform all the time mitzvah number 1, which is believing in Hashem. And we said if tying your shoes can save your life, wait and see what this does in your life. We can ask you something so simple. It is so simple, maybe 4 or 5 people in the room are going to do it. The other, they're not going to do it. It's so simple. What can you make simple? Oh, Rabbi, you want me to keep you Shabbat? No. Rabbi, you want me to eat kosher chickens? No. It's nice, but I'm not asking you to do that. Oh, Rabbi, you want me to give 10 cents to charity every month? No. We give you something that's simple, but it's hard. I want you, in your own words, to talk to the Almighty for 3 minutes a day. 3 minutes a day. And I think maybe 4 or 5 you're going to do it. The rest are not going to do it. Because you want instant chicken soup, instant gratification, instant coffee, instant this, instant that. All I'm asking is 3 minutes a day. Okay, if I were your fitness coach, I would start, can't take you off the bed from being a couch potato to a marathon runner in 1 day, but I would be asking for a half-hour a day, walking for a half-hour a day, in a gym, or at least minimum 10 minutes of exercise. And more difficult walking would include push-ups, include squats, include stretching. More difficult. 3 minutes a day. And what I want you to do is to talk to Hashem about your most acute problem in life, what hurts you most. Talk to Him. Hashem, help me find my soulmate. I'm having a tough time. Hashem, help me find a cure to my sickness. I'm having a tough time. Hashem, help solve my financial problems. I'm having a tough time. But hold it. Don't just ask like a child with a sense of entitlement. Do that in the last minute. For 2 minutes, like the first minute, Hashem, help me get to know you. Hashem, help me become part of you and you become part of my life. Hashem, let me hear that you understand me. Show me that you're listening to me. Show me. Hashem will do it. It is unbelievable how to do it. If you could do it for some non-Jewish girl in South Dakota, he could certainly do it for everybody in Houston. Hashem will be happy to do it. And the second minute, say thank you. I think medical insurance, I don't know if they canceled Obamacare. They didn't cancel Obamacare. I think it doesn't matter. There's Emunah Care. Emunah Care means I thank Hashem from my heart. Oh, Hashem says, thank my heart? Most people don't thank me for their heart. You realize that heart is a blessing, saves cardiac problems. Hashem, thank you for my eyes. Oh, a person who wants to keep good, healthy eyes and see. No cataracts, no glaucoma, heaven forbid. A lot of people suffer from that stuff. Hashem, thank you for my eyes. Hashem, thank you for my fingers. Hashem, thank you for my home. Thank you for my wife. Thank you for my kids. Thank you for my blessing. You know, when you say, you preface what you want with gratitude, that really opens up the gate. And then ask for what you want. Hashem, this is what I want. I want you to be with me. And I want you to help me. And help me with this problem. And you'll see 3 minutes a day. If you do that for 30 days, 3 minutes a day, I promise you'll see big miracles. I don't know what. But you talk to Hashem in your own. And even if you are religious, quote unquote, you know, a lot of people are religious, but you say to Hashem, Shalom Aleichem. Person's got a frown, not religious. You know, there's a word in Yiddish for someone who's religious. It's called frum. Okay, say the word frum and smile. You can't do it. Frum. You say emunah. You say emunah. Hashem doesn't want frum. He wants us to be believers. And this is what Torah says, you are believers and sons of believers. This is what we have to enhance. You say, you get great advice. I don't have to take time. You got Rabbi Volbe and Rabbi Volbe, the great addresses to ask for whatever questions you have. But this, I want you to try. 3 minutes a day is all I ask. And if you want to get a little bit more about Emunah, very simple. Write a brand new book. It's called 3 Words of Emunah. You get in the back. And it gives, very simple, what Jews believe, why Jews believe. And not only that, what Jews believe, the non-Jews have written that book, and they takes because all humanity, but especially for Jews. And you'll see how that helps you enhance your personal potential. We have another book that we wrote, a person I mentioned, that a person can't possibly fulfill his personal potential without his connection to Hashem, and that's The Path to Your Peak. And maybe I'm not such a good athlete, but I'm a great coach. And I have the privilege of developing champions. Okay. A lot more champions. Does anybody here not want 30% more income? I should have asked that in the beginning, because if you don't, good. All right. Read that book, Path to Your Peak. You're going to have more income. You're going to have more charisma. Whatever you do, you can do it much more successfully. And you're going to feel so much better about yourself. And it's a short read. Path to Your Peak is 143 pocket-sized pages. 3 Words for Emunah is 100 pocket-sized pages. You can put it in your breast pocket. You can put it, if you're not a guy, you can put it in your, the girls can put it in their purse and take it with you. Okay, if you like, I'd be happy to sign the book for you. Be happy to sign the book for you. Be happy to give you a blessing. And I won't leave here until everybody's had a chance to say quick, slow. We don't have time for extended consultations. Love your neighbors, yourself. I think give everybody else a turn for a minute. And I bless you, beloved brothers and sisters of Houston. It's been delightful to speak to you. I want to give you so much. My greatest reward is when I hear good news from people. And so I want a lot of wedding invitations from Houston, and a lot of bris and kiddush invitations from Houston, and a lot of good news that people are healthy. And Bo Hashem, looking forward to hear good news of Houston. And I bless you with all your heart's wishes for the very best. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Brody. Very, very inspiring. I want to just, on every chair, there was one of these. That's also another step, is that every Wednesday night we have a Partners in Torah program here. And if you can fill this out, we have an incredible program. Mrs. Grinitsky's here, and would love to partner more people to learn one-on-one. I have the privilege of learning with Jordan every Wednesday, and there are many partners that are here that come, but many who are not, and can use this opportunity to learn with someone else. Learn any topic that you're interested in. It's a great program. You have the form right there. And thank you all for coming. Thank you, Rabbi Brody, again so much for being here with us. The books in the back are $10 per book. You can put the money in that envelope right there.